In the world of human future, the universe has been mastered.
Living on another planet is no longer impossible. And one of the planets with people living is the Sand Planet. It was ruled by the Harkonnen family. This planet is covered with sand. However, under that sand is a treasure. That is the spice, specialized to stimulate human brain, make people prolong life, and become outstanding intelligence. It is also thanks to the spice that the family Harkonnen has become extremely rich. If they compare, they even have more money than the king. Because of that, Harkonnen increasingly expanded power. The king had no other way to deprive Harkonnen's rule. Instead, the Atreides family. This is also the family of the male lead Paul. As soon as he learned that he would move his house, he learned everything about the Sand Planet. Recently, he often dreamed of a strange girl there. Paul is Jessica's son. She is a magician who can manipulate others by voice. That's why she also wants her son to learn that skill. But to learn, it is necessary to practice a lot. From the voice to the height, it must be standard to manipulate others. However, Paul was a genius when he ordered his mother to give him a cup of water, successfully made Jessica manipulate it. That night, the male lead was led to Superior's mother. She is also Jessica's master. Seeing Paul, Superior's mother immediately chased her mother out, then used Uncle Ngan to pull him closer. At this time, she forced the male lead to overcome a challenge. As soon as his hand stuffed it into a box. Then Superior's mother used a poisonous needle to the nape of Paul. But now he just pulled out his hand and will be hit by her. At the same time, the box also gave him the pain. But Paul still had to endure. If he passed this test, he deserved to be an Atreides warrior. Fortunately, Paul overcame his challenge with his consistency. Mother Superior then told Jessica, said that she had an overdose when she gave birth to Paul at this time. Fear that the Kwisatz Haderach still has not been awakened with the ability to be controlled. But Jessica was not worried, because she thought that if Paul could not overcome difficulties, it was not worth the Kwisatz Haderach. It turned out that Jessica and the Supreme Mother not only stood in the darkness of the world, they also deliberately combined the outstanding bloodlines together. To be born Kwisatz Haderach, the supernatural power to lead the world to the bright future. Who would have thought that the conversation between Jessica and Superior's mother was heard? At this point, he thought he realized himself was a Kwisatz Haderach in the future. Not long, Paul and his family also arrived at the Sand Planet, the place where they will face many difficulties. Like sandstorms, can tear everything, or the terrible heat can kill people. Yet there is still a tribe in the desert. They are Fremen. Their home is the vast desert, because the Harkonnen family exploits the herbal disposal of their homes. Over the past hundreds of years, Fremen people have always been anti-operating machines. In addition, in the desert also has a sandworm called Shai-Huludmot. It was strong enough to swallow a mountain, so the Fremen called it the Supreme God. This monster has no eyes but only a large mouth. However, it is extremely sensitive to sound. Just a small noise makes this sandworm attracted. That's why no one dares to walk in the desert. However, the Fremen created a dance to move. It is called the sand step, described as the movement of the sand in the desert, thereby avoiding the attack of monsters. While Paul are falling in love with documents, the Fremen suddenly attacked by a bug. Luckily, he still avoided. After finding out, Paula knows this is a minor magic. A type of machine can fly through all objects. Very quickly, then the Atreides army found the Paul attacker. It was a Harkonnen soldier. This guy hid under one to control the male lead but failed. At the same time, the Supreme Mother also went to the planet of the Harkonnen family. The announcement that Atreides family has successfully reached the Sand Planet. That made Emperor extremely angry, because he was robbed of a piece of rice. So he wanted to destroy the whole family Atreides to discharge this anger. However, the Supreme Mother asked to let Jessica's mother live. So later, she used two people into an important thing. Hearing the Supreme Mother said that the Emperor did not dare to do left. Who doubted when she left he ordered to destroy the Atreides family? No one. On this side, General Dooku also returned after 4 weeks with the Fremen. He hid himself in a community named Seed. Each cave under the desert can accommodate 10,000 people, and such a cave is called Seed. On the planet, there are thousands of such caves. Today, returning to Dune also brought the leader of Seed he hidden himself. He was Stilgar. After the two sides had a better smell, then also go into the main job. The ruler suggested that they work together to develop together. However, Stilgar bluntly refused, because he thinks they are just foreigners. In addition to coming here to exploit the spice, there is no good idea. So, whose person is done best in the water without committing water wells? After saying that, Stilgar turned and left. Suddenly, Paul now greeted him in Fremen, making Stilgar was quite surprised, and told me who he was, then continued to leave. The next day, the Emperor sent his doctorate to Slot down, to help the Atreides family exploit the spice. As soon as she arrived, she checked everyone, because if not properly worn, the heat here will kill them. This is a very special protective item, when it both makes the body's eyes and recycling the wearer's sweat. But when checking to Paul, Kai was very surprised, because he first wore protection that was extremely accurate. That shows that he is an extremely intelligent person. After checking, Kai also led everyone to see the process of exploiting spice. Whoever opened the sound of machinery now was a sandworm attracted. It is rushing towards them at a horrific speed. He quickly reminded the machine to exploit spice to a safe position. But surprisingly, there was an incident. A belt cannot be attached to the operating boat. There was no other way to risk the plane, to save the workers inside the ship. No doubt, when Paul helped people on the plane, his body reacted again. With the fragrance, the male lead quickly succumbed and almost lost consciousness. While everyone was successful on the plane, then he still could not wake up, make the general have to help Paul. Fortunately, the two of them still escaped in the last seconds. From above, they also saw the deep scene of swallowing the giant machine. That shows how dangerous the desert is. Returning to the doctor to tell Paul only sensitive to the herb. Just rest will be well again. After that, the male lead also told his mother everything. Said that in a criticism, someone told him to wake up. Then he was also attacked by a Fremen girl with a knife. That knife, later he will be given by someone. In addition, Paul saw Jessica became Mother Superior, then gave birth to a daughter. This made her extremely surprised, because she just realized that she was pregnant a few days ago, and never told anyone. And this is a signal that Paul have awakened the ability to penetrate, of the Supreme. On the other side of the title, the army gathered the army to prepare for a war. With this army, he will give the Atreides forever disappears. That night, Paul was given a bottle of sleeping pills by the doctor. At this time, the guards were suddenly defeated. Tuang Tan was suddenly pulled up by someone, hearing the new Duke's noise out to check, when she discovered the butler was collapsed on the ground. If you do not understand what happened, the Duke was beaten, sticking a poison arrow that collapsed. Who doubted the one who took action was the doctor's name, Paul. At this time, he also revealed that he was forced to do this. Then he took away the Duke's ring to assert that he had controlled him. Then he attached the Duke to a denture containing poisonous drama. Tell him to wait for the last breath to use it. At this time, there was Harkonnen soldiers in this time as a broken man. They kept slashing in the world without leaving anyone. Because of the unexpected attack, the Atreides army's fighting was extremely weak. However, Atreides still has an indomitable warrior, that is Dukan. He was like a tiger who defeated each person. No name can touch a Dukan's armpit hair. After resolving all the soldiers Harkonnen, he ran to the Paul room of Paul. Who doubted that the male lead was arrested? These people want to throw two people into the desert to swallow the sand. However, they did not know that male lead is also capable of using Uncle Non, successfully catching a dazzling man, Jessica. When she was taken off her mouth, she used Uncle Non to let them handle each other. As a result, these three men were overlapped by the two. But at the headquarters of Harkonnen also realized the problem. They immediately disabled the plane that made it landed in the desert. At this time, the mother and I looked at the base, and realized it was completely burned by the Harkonnen army. Meanwhile, the Duke was arrested to the base of Emperor. He was extremely happy to have destroyed the Atreides family. But when Han intended to handle the Duke bite the poisonous teeth, make Emperor stick a single breath in the middle of the face. Everyone in the room fell to the ground. Yet, the name Emperor was lucky to survive. This male lead, after searching on the body, suddenly discovered the ring of the Duke. It turned out that the doctor stuffed it into him. And from now on, I became the head of the Atreides family. At this moment, the mother and I saw a plane landing in front of her. The appearance turned out to be Dune and Dr. Kai. Seeing the cruelty of the Harkonnens, she betrayed to help her mother and daughter. Because she was also a Fremen, she led them to her Narrow. Here, Paul also said his plan. Said the Emperor and Harkonnen wanted to destroy Atreides. Then he will make them pay. But Kai was prevented because it was too dangerous. After many years of working for the Emperor, she knew that the old man was extremely cunning. Because he was afraid of the Atreides family. It should be cooperated with Harkonnen to destroy the male lead. Now, if Paul declared war with the Emperor, the world would happen a great battle. There will be unpredictable consequences. At this moment, outside, the soldiers of Harkonnen has come. However, they were soldiers Fremen filled under unexpected attacks. Inside, Dune also felt danger. He immediately took the sword out and locked his mother and daughter, the male lead, in the room. Although there is martial arts, the opponent is too crowded. Finally, Dune sacrificed heroically. Inside, Kai also led her mother to escape. And she will stay because the desert is her home. According to Kairode, the mother and Mother Paulus have successfully left the plane to leave. However, the doctor was not so lucky. While walking in the desert, was suddenly compressed by some soldiers, causing her to fall to the ground. At this time, the soldiers also said that because of betraying the Emperor, she would have to die. Who doubted, Kai answered that she only served a single emperor, Shai-Hulud Mott. Then she knocked on the ground. Immediately, a worm from under the emerging. It swallowed all of them into the big mouth. Meanwhile, the male and son are still being chased by the troops. However, in front of them was a big sandstorm. Sandstorms like this can destroy everything. That made the Harkonnen soldiers just turn their heads. And the mother and son Paul the storm. At this moment, the male lead appeared to a Fremen. He told him to relax for everything to get in harmony with the storm. Immediately, Paul immediately followed. He completely turned off the engine and surrendered everything. But they still succeeded in the storm. Then land in the desert. Meanwhile, the name of General Harkonnen, after not finding the Paul, had returned to the newspaper. He said that the male lead and son was died by the sandstorm. Hearing this, Name Emperor was extremely happy. He ordered to squeeze the resources of the sand planet. This side is trying to go. On the desert, the mother and son police were discovered by a sandworm. It just rushed to the two of them, making them only way to run away. Luckily, still ran to a rock. At this time, the sandworm was completely revealed. He looked at the Paul for a long time, then turned to leave. At this moment, a bunch of Fremen appeared. They planned to eliminate the mother and daughter to get water on their bodies. But luckily, Paul realized the leader of Stilgar. It was the one who visited their base. When he realized, Paul also ordered everyone to stop, because this is the Supreme who will lead the Fremen to the bright future. At this time, a girl also stood up and said that she could not believe that Paul was Supreme. She was the one who appeared in the dream of the male lead. As soon as the group was preparing to depart for the base, suddenly another man stood up to protest. Seeing this person's face is new, because he himself helped his mother and daughter to overcome the sandstorm. At this time, the man asked the male lead to participate in a battle with him. If he won, he would be led. However, according to the rules of the Fremen people, in a war there was a dead person. At this time, the other girl also gave Paul a knife to make a weapon. She did not expect him to win, but will die in honor. Then the male lead entered the battle. But from anywhere, Paul had the advantage, when constantly adjacent to the opponent's throat. However, he was not brave enough to kill. That made the opponent extremely uncomfortable, because it was like poloing him. At this time, everyone also repeated the rules for the male lead. The battle only ended when one of the two lost his life. At this point, Paul decisively ended the opponent, ending the battle. The first time, it made him not happy. The victory of the Battle of Mother Paul was completely accepted, and with others returning to the base. But when they arrived, the mother and daughter were constantly being cursed by the turtle, said that they were cruel foreigners. However, a few still consider Paul as a supreme, will lead them to freedom. Inside, the leader, Stilgar, is trying to ask the elders to let the male and son stay. However, those people do not believe in the power of Paul. and think that a boy caught his nose was not clean. It is impossible to lead the Fremen to freedom. So they wanted to throw the male and son out of the desert. At this time, Stilgar had to fight his life. If Paul are not the supreme person, he will accept the quality. So the elders gave Stilgar a chance. Then he went out and called Jessica to follow him. He led her to a lake and said that this was the holy country of the Fremen, when each member quality will be sucked by them and poured here. Even if they have other substances, they do not drink this water, waiting for the supreme master to appear to bring their people to freedom. The number of countries will be brought out to restore the Sand Planet. The desert becomes a paradise. After listening, Jessica still doesn't understand. What is Stilgar? At this point, he just said his mother superior was too old, and she wants to transfer the throne to the mother of the Supreme Mother. If Jessica does not agree, it means that Paul is just a normal person. Thus, their mother and daughter will be given and suck all the water into this lake. After listening, Jessica was extremely worried. But if not, her mother and daughter will die. Then she was led to Superior's mother, and they forced her to drink a kind of life. It was dead from the wrong body. This type of water will release the soul when drinking. If it is not suitable to be a mind, Jessica will lose his life. Knowing that, she didn't want to drink. However, Superior's mother used Uncle Nan to force her to swallow life. Immediately after drinking, Jessica's body had a strong reaction. She had seizures and sweating profusely. But fortunately, she had overcome. Her eyes also became blue like the Fremen. That means Jessica has become a religious mother. After waking up, she told Paul, "I only have one step left to become the Kwisatz Haderach. It is drinking life." By then, Paul will penetrate the future and admire the glorious beauty. Not long after, Paul joined the mission with the Fremen army. It was an unexpected attack of Henkin and Spice. They hid in the sand layer, waiting for the opponent's ship to come up, and stood up and attacked suddenly. That's why the enemy could not return. The results were handled by the Fremen army. On the other side, Paul and Charlie were tasked with handling escort aircraft. The two coordinates are also extremely good, while Charlie carried the cannon. Then behind Paul accepted the mission to protect the girl. Just like that, the two of them easily defeated the fighter plane. At this time, the ship's exploitation was no one to protect. Immediately, the new Fremen carried the advanced weapon to attack. Those are laser guns. It easily makes the machine explode into dust. After this victory, Paul was also looked at another eye. They did not expect him to have such good fighting ability. But from then on, the male lead, Charlie, became a good couple. Everyone goes anywhere. Although they did not say it, both felt the opponent's feelings. Because of the resistance of the Fremen, the Harkonnen army could not exploit the medicine. That made Emperor's nephew extremely bitter. Threaten your nephew if you cannot stop this. We'll let him go to work with Zundus. Meanwhile, Paul, after a period of challenge. Today will be the day he decided whether he became a part of the Fremen, by having to go through the final test. It was the success of the wrong riding on the sand. Stilga gave him a deep calling, and good luck. The male lead was slowly walking forward. Then he plugged the machine down the sand, then quickly went up to the high hill, waiting for Shai-Hulud to appear. Less than 5 minutes was moving. Seeing it, Stilga also had to swear, because it was too big. However, the male lead is still extremely calm. Waiting for Shai-Hulud to approach him, he stood up and held 2 hooks. Run straight towards the monster, jumping on his head. Then use 2 hooks to plug into the wrong body. But its movement speed is too high. Making dust flying blind makes the male lead extremely hard to not slip his hand. When he kept his balance, he slowly stood up. The moment Paul stand upright on the wrong back, who the button surfing. On the sand, everyone broke. Everyone thinks this is the Kwisatz Haderach that they are waiting for. This news also quickly moved to Superior's mother's ear. Paul has successfully domesticated the largest monster ever. Hearing that, Jessica immediately gave this message for all Fremen people on the Sand Planet. The next day, she also moved down Nam to report this news to the people there. And Jessica wants his son to go with him. However, Paul refused. He decided to stay here, just to protect people while preventing her from her bunch of her poker, not advising Jessica's son to leave alone. She was escorted by the Fremen people to sit on the back of Shai-Hulud, then overcome the sandstorm to go down Nom. Meanwhile, Paul is also extremely busy. When he and the Fremen army attacked the herbal warehouse of her people, it makes them lose 80% of the herbal spice. That made Emperor's nephew extremely angry. He knew that if he could not kill all Fremen, he would be eliminated by Emperor. So he brought troops away. Let the aircraft release every corner of the desert. However, it is impossible to see the silhouette of the Fremen. There is no other way to Nom's name Takat had to land the plane. But who doubted, under the dust, flew blindly, could not see anything. At this time, the newly escaped Fremen warriors now killed each of the soldiers, make them not know which way. Seeing the situation was not good, at Nom's nephew, the new title ordered the troop to withdraw. He also runs back to the plane and did not dare to turn around. Thus, he failed to practice in the battle with the Fremen. But the fact that a new god appeared quickly to the Emperor's ear. So the Emperor wanted to control the Kwisatz Haderach to make the Fremen spirit decline. Since then, the exploitation of the herb will become easier. However, this idea was prevented by the princess. Instead, they just wait and wait. Let the people should fight with people, Fremen. By the time both sides weaken, they will appear. After leaving the princess palace to find Superior's mother, asked her to stand the Supreme to appear. Hearing this, Mother Superior immediately prohibited the princess saying this. In addition, it was not revealed that the Emperor helped her to destroy a Chinet. If the family is different, they will rebel against the Emperor. By then, this throne will be long. As for dealing with her, she had a way. It turned out not only the male is the candidate for the Kwisatz Haderach, but also the grandson of Emperor named Dotho. He was extremely cruel and horizontal. If they control this name, there will be people in their hands. In the south today is also the birthday of Dotho. The birthday gift that Emperor gave to his grandchild was to replace his brother's position. However, to officially step up to take power, he had to overcome a challenge. It was fighting with warriors at Chief Saudi. But the poetry did not show anxiety. His hands and 2 knives confidently entered the arena. As expected of Fahn's rival, he was very strong, with only 3 moves that successfully lowered the 2. Now the battle was brought back 1-1. Anyone who doubted the last warrior was not soaked. Even at the beginning, I played on the poem. However, he later turned upside down. Take off the warrior with a knife. Seeing the cruel grandson of such a discard, very satisfied. Because with him, the poem is the future of Harkonnen. And from here, the poem will replace the British to fight
the Fremen. Meanwhile, in the desert, a crowd of people who are exploiting the herb, suddenly being attacked by Paulaman and the Sand from Sand. Under the stormy attack, the opponent was quickly defeated. But when Paul looked closely, he suddenly discovered that the opponent was the former general. In some way, he still survived. After realizing the 2 men hugged each other, returned to the new general base back. In the battle, he and some others were lucky to survive. Because there is no place to go, we stay here. Daily go to theft of spice for sale. Hope one day will counterattack Harkonnen. He also did not expect that the mother and son Paul were still alive. In addition, he was the supreme one who was revered by the people of Fremen. Then the general asked why the male lead did not take revenge on the family. With the strength of the Fremen people, he now hit the victory. However, Paul said that he did not want to do that, for fear that many people will die, so he had to find the least loss. At this time, the general also told Paul a secret. His father used to have a weapon. He can hunt flat Harkonnen with just 1 button. So he did not delay, he led Paul to that arsenal, along with the leader Stilgar and her Charlie. When entering the cave, everyone must be surprised, because it contains thousands of nuclear warheads. And this is also the reason why the Emperor is afraid of the family Atreides. In the south of Jessica is also very convenient in propagating the upcoming Supreme. So the Fremen here is looking forward to every day. Jessica then came in to worship Shai-Huludnet, tell the bodyguard to catch a sandworm. Then what is it in the lake? And died to get water. Jessica's intention is to give Paul to drink that water, so that he could awaken the ability to understand the mutuality of the Supreme, although that could make him lose his life. On the other hand, when you just got out of the cave, suddenly people heard a loud explosion. Looking at the new base was surprised when it was being bombarded by Harkonnen troops. Making casualties cannot be told. The sacred lake is also submerged. But for that cruelty is none other than the name Dotho made. He wants to use a trick of grass to the root, thinking that the emerging Supreme Major was unwilling. But at this time, Paul was with the people Fremen, survived, was evacuated. Now there is no other way. He only has to lead people to the south. Waiting for the name Dotho to arrive, no one is here anymore. Meanwhile, Paul has successfully arrived at the Shai-Hulud temple in the south. At this time, a bodyguard also brought out the water of life and told him to drink it, knowing that drinking water may have to die. But Paul still took the vase and swallowed it all. His mind was soon opened. That's why Paul knows the whole past and the future of his family. And now he also found the way to lead the Fremen to freedom. But outside, Paul's body is very loving, may lose your life at any time, make Charlie extremely worried. However, Jessica now appeared, bow that Paul will wake up soon. As expected, the male lead had opened his eyes. The body also completely recovered. Witnessing this scene, everyone immediately knelt down, because knowing that the Supreme One has returned. Paul then told her everything, that you have to be injured to win the final win. In addition, he also knew Jessica was the daughter of Emperor, and he is also the grandfather of Paul. It turned out that he carried two bloodlines, Archive and Harkonnen. At this time, Jessica also told her not to know that, until drinking water to become Mother Superior. Not long after, a meeting took place, with the appearance of Paul. The Fremen below began to doubt his supreme identity. One of them requested a match. However, he frankly said loudly, said that it was Paul Archive, the supreme master of the Fremen. He will bring freedom to the entire sand planet. So in this auditorium, no one is strong enough to fight himself. That made people indignant, directly withdraw weapons and stood up. However, Paul went in front of a leader, and succeeds the 5-life background and the secrets that no one knows about him. Make everyone open their mouths in astonishment. At this time, everyone immediately knelt down to worship. At the same time, Paul also affirmed that he would lead the people of Fremen to heaven. Thereby, he has completely received the support of everyone. Next, Paul sent a challenge to the emperor. Getting him must give him the throne. This made the emperor extremely angry, immediately prepare the army to fight. Knowing this news, the princess came to consult her mother superior. She said that whether now Harkonnen or a bottle of victory, the emperor will lose the throne. The only way is to bring the princess to the right. On the other hand, the emperor brought the entire army to Harkonnen, but emperor did not have this job, thereby thinking that the emperor brought troops here to fight Harkonnen. So emperor sent a message to the great clan. Tell the planet being attacked and need help. On the other side, Paul is still observing, and everything is still going as planned. At this time, he also assigned tasks to each leader. In addition, there is a certain advice to let the emperor live. On this side, emperor and his 2 grandchildren were under the inspection of the emperor. When asked who the supreme name is, they don't know. Then he asked the Duke of Akkadi's. Then emperor immediately claimed to be dead, but why he could still send a statement. The crime said the emperor had punished Nam, stripped with a sword. In addition to the desert, a sandstorm is coming. It is the right opportunity to attack. At this time, Paul also appeared before the whole army. Directly order the war. Immediately, the nuclear warheads were launched. Make the base of Harkonnen content. The Emperor's army could not turn back to change clothes. Thereby, many names are buried. But this is just the beginning. When they could not be shocked, the giant sandworm has appeared. It is controlled by Fremen leaders. Just like that, straight towards the base of Harkonnen. Wherever go is flattened there. The sand also suddenly appeared tens of thousands of Fremen warriors. Directly rushed to call the Emperor's troops. Causing him inside, he only knew that many soldiers were protected by many troops. At this time, the base door was also opened. The one who entered is none other than Paul. He went straight to Emperor. The person is dying on the ground. Then Paul sent a greeting to his grandfather. Then see him off to the Golden Stream with a knife. Outside, the Emperor's army and Harkonnen was completely fallen. Even the grandson of Emperor was eliminated. At this time, the sky also appeared warships of other clan. Seeing that, Paul immediately ordered the Emperor to be a prisoner, and send words to the great family. If he dared, he moved him, he would launch a missile to destroy all the spice mines. Hearing that, the Emperor immediately went up, because he thought that the clan came here to save him, who expected them to come here to overthrow him. At this time, Paul also told Charlie that he would love her to the last breath. Then he turned to say he would marry the Emperor's daughter. Let the 2 of them take the throne to rule the world. Hearing here, Charlie is very bitter, but also could not do anything else. Who would have thought that the Emperor rejected that proposal? Even so, the reason for killing 4 male leads because he was too human. But the rule has no room for weakness. Hearing this, Paul was unable to change. He asked the Emperor to participate in a battle with him. Paul will use the rules of the Fremen to win him. If you feel scared, the Emperor can find the player instead. At this time, the name of the poem appeared. The 2 strongest people finally touched each other. Whoever won will be the new Emperor. So everyone put all their strength into this battle. But Feyd-Rautha is not ashamed to be evil. He constantly pressed Paul into the weak market. Meanwhile, the male lead is too died. The tricks launched are not cruel enough to defeat the opponent. The result was skewed by the opponent. Everyone thought that Paul lost. But as soon as he pulled the knife to finish him, the male lead's knife stabbed him. At this time, the poem immediately said, "Very well, Atreides," and collapsed. So the male lead had convinced. Seeing that, the princess only had to agree to take Paul. Then the information now reported the great clan disagrees with Paul to the throne. Hearing that, Paul immediately ordered the entire army to lead them to heaven. This is also a challenge with the great clan. Will Paul win the last battle? Then invite you to watch later. The movie is over here. Thanks for watching, and see you again in the next video.